Bamanyi Abaganda baagala babbibi.
okufukamira wansi ku ttaka. Yeah,
Mukwano luuto nga lumususe.
lugezi.
Olaba? Ayogera kuzaala akamutaka ebbanga likyaliyo.
Ensimingi emyezi ebiri. Tegiri ebiri?
Esatu. Kale ebiri lwakuna naye tubaala esatu.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen that are watching me on Blackout Fire Network. It is a Wednesday. Today is, of course, 8th of May. Let me hope everything is moving on wherever you're listening in and watching from. Being a Wednesday, today our topic is a bit, of course, traumatizing, if I may say. Today, yeah, it's a bit traumatizing. But before, of course, I go to the topic, uh, I will first of all thank the people that always watch us from Twitter. Please and please and please endeavor to like and follow our, of course, Twitter page. Let's grow this page. And at times I see people, of course, very many people watching us. Show us some support on Twitter. You, of course, like this Twitter channel. And those that watch me from Facebook, endeavor to like and follow the page, as well as, of course, YouTube, different YouTube Blackout Fire Network YouTube channels, and never to subscribe if you're new, you're watching me for the first time. Yeah, today, today it has been in Uganda. It has been cloudy. It tried to rain, but everything is fine now. But our topic is about Chinese brutality. There is a video that has been moving around on social media, most especially on Twitter and, of course, TikTok, where this Chinese man was wiping African workers. I've never seen, apart from if someone is, of course, a slave, I've never seen a boss or a manager, of course, wiping workers at work. This is, of course, something that is extremely terrible, something that, of course, that is against, of course, human rights and humanity. So, and actually, this is actually not the first incident we have seen Chinese I'm sorry for that, of course, inconvenience. But I was saying that it is not the first time like we see Chinese brutality in different African countries. We have seen Chinese at many occasions trying to abuse Africans, starting from minors, raping minors and impregnating them. They have now resorted to, of course, beating up workers. Like I said, this is not the first incident we have ever seen in Kenya, where a Chinese manager made workers to lay down to be caned. I think that news crowded social media during that time, where a Chinese worker laid down all the all the workers to be caned because of different issues within the company. So we see that in August 2021, we saw a video appeared, of course, on Twitter. A Chinese man repeatedly wipes a former African employee, of course, tied to a pole with a cord. So the man accused of course, theft tries to pull himself back as he hits rapidly in the head. It is unclear when the incident happened. Actually, we know where, however, of course, the Risturo Chinese mine in the western province of Rwanda on the eastern shore of Lake Kivu. So the video, diffused by local newspaper, the Chronicles immediately generated a shock reaction from the African public in a few days. So San Shujun, this is the name of actually of the torture manager, and was of course arrested and sentenced to 20 years in prison in Rwanda. But we see that the case has gained international visibility for at least two reasons. Where, firstly, because it is one of the few incidents in which Chinese citizens was tried in Africa instead. Yeah.
So they think they shouldn't be. No,
They shouldn't be, and they are investors. They shouldn't be arrested. So, uh, like I said, being, of course, extradited to the Chinese, Beijing decades-long political relationship in the continent often allows offenders to bypass African justice. So, more importantly, however, uh, is that, of course, Resturos is only the latest in the long line of violent cases. Ndaba Bakoye Katemba. egundi erabika eri wala. So we see uh, um, we see that firstly, hmm? We see that firstly, because it is one of the few incidents in which a Chinese incident was tried in Africa instead of being extradited to China. So Beijing's decades-long political relationship in the continent often allow offenders to bypass African justice. So we see that most importantly, however, is that of course Brasiro is only the latest in the long line of violence cases to have involved in Chinese experts in Africa. We see that only 2 months earlier in Sierra Leone, an official of the China Rayleigh 70 group had attacked local employees. Two, of course, compatriots were arrested in the Democratic Republic of Congo for ordering local armed forces to beat up an African miner. And we see that over there were 181 accusations of human rights violations related to Chinese investments in Africa between 2013 and 2020. So most of the incidents happened in Uganda, like I said, Kenya, Zimbabwe, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. So the countries where China, where China has, of course, the largest presence. So over the past 2 decades, the Asian giant has built thousands of miles of railways and, of course, hundreds of roads and hospitals on the continent. We see that it has launched mining and energy projects in Africa, so the arrival of Chinese capital has been accompanied by the massive wave of migration for years. Chinese labor force arrival in Africa has remained around 200,000. And of course, we see that if the Chinese complain about the indolence and low productivity of local workers, African complain about the partly wages and lack of safety equipments on the construction site. So the problem has reached such proportions that it has forced Chinese authorities, once inclined to treat violations as isolated cases. So, to increasingly intervene, the Chinese embassy in Namibia recently, we see that posted a guide on WeChat to introduce Chinese expatriates on how to behave at work and how to avoid, of course, transgressing local laws. So, in addition to providing guidelines for resolving wage disputes with African workers, the vendor of costume advises known to, of course, brandish firearms to threaten staff, not to intimidate and, of course, coerce or striking employees, and always try to suppress protests by involving local authorities. So, a lot of things happen in, of course, in Africa during this time. Ani yatuze waggulu. Eh? Eh? Akitaddeyo ng'alabye nti tuzze oba kyaddaaka tetuli. Eh? Anti background yaffe. Background togikere nagikyusa nenteekayo eyaffe. So, in fact, we see that the cases of the problem of course, range from the low productivity of Chinese immigration to Africa. Like I said, low productivity of Chinese immigration to Africa. The most educated Chinese workers choose less, of course, hostile destinations, to the lack of the spirit of acceptance towards different peoples and civilizations. So the former, of course, colonial empire has this. We see that culture, of course, supremacism since the imperial age when China was, as its name implied, Zhongku, the middle country and the center of the world. We see that in the recent times, the amazing growth of the nation GDP has added the economic dimensions and the phenomena. So, so uh, a lot of things are happening in Africa, and Chinese are doing a lot in Africa. So, looking at, of course, exceptionalism, which appeared a few days ago in the BBC's investigations on racism for sale, we see that uh, industry of video messages or clips of just few seconds in which Africans of all ages, including children, are paid a few dollars to recite, sometimes degrading or, of course, murdering phrases without knowing what they mean. Whilst it is hard to estimate the scale of the business, it is spread on the Chinese social media and the e-commerce sites. Uh, so there is much, of course, levity behind pornography of poverty. In few, we see that few in China are aware of what goes on the backstage, but the levity can have a wide-ranging, of course, repercussions. In fact, it risks and to consolidate the narrative at odds with the official rhetoric of the South African relationship, and the credibility of Beijing's agenda is decided between African minds and Chinese blogosphere. Like most of the Chinese in Africa, it's not that it's not like these people they're doing injustice. These are, of course, brutalities in Africa, but a lot of things have happened in their name, which meant those people are paying out minors okuzanya porn and pornography, speaking out words they don't even know about. As long as you're naked, they tell you to, of course, to speak out certain words. Yesterday, I was watching on TikTok. President Museveni was meeting business men and women in Uganda, abasuubuzi. Then a certain man said, these were not words of course, the president, but is the leader of those business men and women in Uganda, that chairman. He said that, Mr. President,
He's the chairman of the traders.
Yeah, of the traders. We have a problem of the Chinese, the fake investors in Uganda. These are people that are competing with the local market. We all know that in business there is a chain of distribution from the wholesaler, but these people, they are the one that, of course, sell us things.
The manufacturers.
Yeah, they are the manufacturers. They are the wholesalers. They are the
retailers
at
and
the
then
same
they
time.
pork. True. Like,
So,
if you go to our side, you will still see them. They come with cards, VI cards, selling soap, cooking oil, whatever, and they sell at the cheaper price. Baja ne bastaging n'agamotoka. Abantu ne beeyiwawo nga bagula. And they do obutale. They come during ebiseera by'obutale. If someone is selling a bar of soap, it's 60,000. For them, they are going to sell it 5,500. Now, someone will see it is better. Believe time will be saving. So, and remember, for them, they are selling a lot at the same time. Because now you'll find people are crowded on their trucks, buying their products. Now they are competing with the people who are selling on retail level in shops. Because now everybody will know that every Wednesday we have trucks of Chinese coming down. So don't buy soap. Right? We shall buy from the Chinese. They will be coming on this certain day, if it is Wednesday or whatever the date. So don't sell soap, or don't buy whatever stuff. We shall buy from the Chinese. And remember, of course, the license or the tax let me say the license that allows you to sell in the market is cheaper. Cheaper than you renting a house or maybe cheap. So for them, what they do is getting those trucks, fuel the trucks, get the fuel, rush to those places in urban areas. And someone is selling a bar of soap at 6,000 just to get 500 from it, to make sure that they sustain the rent and the taxes that go along in the within the market association. But now, if Chinese invade like that man said, really, and you want that is like defiling, defiling the trade system. And I wouldn't like. This is something that actually we've been talking about for apparently a very long time. And what did the president say about the Chinese working those things? I left you watching that thing.
Like Salabi actually reply on that. He just replied
He
another
needed
thing.
to, because this one, even a child can see that it's not right.
That guy supports Chinese so much, so it is very difficult for him to say bad about them.
Well, let's wait and see what he's going to say about the circulating video of the Chinese whipping those Ugandan youths. Let's wait and see about that, because there is no way. But at times I like it sometimes when African men react to such kind. There is a video I saw some time back. So apparently, I think I posted that on TikTok and they removed it. So this Chinese brought his kung fu that he wanted to fight a black man. He hit this dude. Hmm? Bamukwata ne kung fu ze ne bamuzinga nazo. It was the most spectacular speculation. It was so like everybody. So I guess this Chinese, the Chinese man didn't really know what African people are like. So he brought his kick and boxing. Black man hit this dude so bad, and I always like it when we see black people, Africans, trying to defend themselves from such kind of violence. And I want, and do you know that those youths, if they wanted, they would have beaten that Chinese. But they just sat, respected.
The Chinese are guarded. Baba guarding over basically with guns. They are guarded. They are guarded.
That one is terrible. Well, let's wait and see what we may see this man being arrested, because we are not going to sit around and watch such kind of issues. And I'm grateful that we are seeing a lot of people coming out, by the way, for this scenario, and then the police also, of course, coming out to condemn this act and all that. First, when the Chinese came, they came with another tactic. And I think they have only realized that they have a lot or too much liberty. For the fact, when they had just come, they were always on the sexual part, the sexual harassment part. They were usually targeting uh, young girls, all right? Young African girls, orphans, like, and usually they were focusing on those people who were up country, because they knew these are people probably who don't know a lot about their rights. They are seeing a Mzungu, they knew. I mean, those old people in the village want to take a big step, and that's how they were focusing. And then after realizing that Africans have been neglecting this kind of inhuman behaviors, and actually Chinese have were managing to, of course, go scot free after doing all this. Now they have come up. You don't. They even hit an African men. All right, they are fighting, boxing one on one. Someone is flogging the entire organic company. You make all grown ass men to lie down because you want to flog them. because of whatever that you think. I've not seen how can you even flog a grown up. Don't you sack the person.
Mm.
Shagina. I don't know. Me, you cannot tongue frogging and I be a chinyampe. You flog me.
And the thing is, like,
Ongora.
Africans are unruly, but these people are guarded by people with guns.
Mm,
Whenever they are beating up these people, they are guarded by, of course, people with guns.
mm,
Together,
mm.
because the way they were caning, the way they were wiping these boys, like according to what, according like Omanyi actually yagambanga forensic. According to my interpretation, there was someone behind who was stronger than these boys, not the Chinese, not the Chinese, the Chinese man,
Mm,
not that Chinese. There was someone behind, either with a gun or a big wipe,
mm.
who was there.
And that's why the boys could not turn
Yeah.
or do anything.
Just imagine they were sitting down. Who made them to sit
Because I
down?
know they would have beat that Chinese
Yeah.
terribly.
Now, who made them to sit down? They were sitting down. But they were to the ones who made them to sit down. Order. Basaba bagambye bugyemu engatto mutule wansi.
Naye nga ani kati nga nako kajjayo olusaati katandika okuba abaana.
Gamba gyemu engatto. There was someone behind who was, of course, more energetic than these boys, because you can't just beat up Africans like that. But we see that, of course, in real Kenya, we see that before last year, a 26-year could not, of course, recall the experiencing racism at first hand by the Chinese, of course, by the Chinese, of course, in Kenya. Not while growing up as, of course, an orphan. We see that. So apart from these Chinese, of course, beating up Africans badly, impregnating, of course, young girls in Africa, these, of course, are people that are doing racism in Africa, irrespective of the businesses, the very many businesses they are doing, from manufacturing to, of course, retail selling in Africa, competing with the local people. They end up doing racism. These people are racists.
They even call us monkeys and all that.
The other time we watched a video about the Ugandan Chinese boy who was moving on streets. People were collecting, of course, things for that boy. Bamusulao. He was left by the parents. Where did you watch that?
The Chinese parents.
I guess no. Bali ba China ndoza n'Omuganda.
So people were fundraising for this half Chinese child who was left on the streets, and he was kind of school and stuff like that. We have really the Chinese brutality in Africa extends the physical, one-on-one brutal exercising to psychological, alright, to of course low wages, low payment, land degradation, of course exploitation of
Here is the boy.
Africa. Yeah, Africa has minerals.
That is the Chinese boy.
Wow. So we have seen all those kind of things happening down here, and I feel like you said, I don't know why Beijing thinks and Chinese should be punished in China, not in Africa, because for them they feel like an African doesn't have a right to punish a Chinese whatsoever. Yet we see a lot of Chinese punishing or brutally, of course, fighting with the African people.
Mm.
So if the laws in Beijing do not allow Africans to, of course, constitutionally probably arrest or condemn the Chinese actions, and then they shouldn't come in Africa, because you cannot come in our countries and then you expect to violently, of course, handle us brutality, and at the end of the day you go scot free. All right, I can see Jib Jabba is, of course,
And Michelle.
watching us here on
Michelle.
and Michelle.
Yeah.
All right, Jib Jabba and Michelle are watching us here on of course, YouTube. Thank you so much, guys, for dropping in, and we hope you are doing good. Hi, Michelle. I hope you're doing fine. Jib Jabba, thank you for always being here. Yeah, yeah. Whenever you get time, honestly. Jib Jabba, what do you think about the Chinese brutality in Africa? So,
Mm.
so,
So, but yeah.
wow.
So we see that over the past decades, hundreds of African migrant workers, traders, and students, talking about hello family. Michelle says hello family. We are doing good, Michelle. We are doing good. We are doing good and fine here on Blackout Fire Network. We are doing good, Michelle. Angubuuza ku Michelle wange yali atubulako. Well, my last comment was deleted, so read between the lines. Was deleted by who? Huh?
I don't know.
Hmm?
Last comment here, Gucci.
Hmm?
Last comment here, Gucci.
I don't know. So I gotta read between the lines.
Umutu guessing. All right, Michelle is right there. Michelle, thank you for coming through. So, guys, like I was saying, we are waiting and we expect to see justice being done, because no matter the crime, we do not support a mob justice in Africa, and we don't support someone taking the law in their hands. And of course, and before even you try to punish me, I think if you feel like a worker cannot work for you, it's better you sack them. All right, maybe you let them go.
Mm.
Okay, and not to, of course, think that you have the right to punish them like they are children or something, and you're actually practically punishing grown ass men, which does not make sense.
Mm.
Okay, according to African culture, according to African tradition, you will have humiliated that man beyond boundaries.
Mm.
Okay, so you tell a grown ass man who has a wife and children at home, who also punishes his children with the same cane, probably, and then for you, you are pulling out the belt of your trouser to flog this man in whichever part that you find suitable. All right, and you feel like that is punishment. Who gave someone the right to do that? Even employees do not have the right to do that. If you feel like you cannot handle issues maturely, then you are not a boss. All right, you cannot be doing that. So, like Jib Jabba said, that Africans need to stand. We need to stand for ourselves. He said that stand for yourself. That's the comment.
Mm.
Um, I will say that for a very long time, like Innocent was, of course, telling us that this issue is not about Africans not being able to fight and defend themselves.
Mm,
But of course, the issue is about the people who are defending the Chinese rather.
mm,
All right, because we see usually where Chinese are, they have got armed people who are actually guarding them. All
mm,
right, because I can tell you, Africans or black people are very unruly.
mm,
You cannot start beating people anyhow. I showed you a video where Africans or Ugandan young people were stoning the Chinese because the Chinese had refused to, of course, pay their salary. So they are stoning to the point that they burned their places down. So I think Chinese resorted to having bodyguard or having military guarding their facilities and their companies because they were expecting such kind of things or retaliation after, of course, their bad activities towards
mm,
the Africans. So, as you see, like this video, unfortunately it's a picture, but
mm.
there is a video. Why don't you look for a video?
Mm.
Um,
Professor, say hivi
tell you.
esobola okubeera naye tusobola oyingizaako gino nyo nesigiraba
Mm.
yabadde ku Twitter.
Yeah, but the TikTok, I guess, on Twitter, I didn't have to do that. So the picture is right there, and you can see it's like Obaba Nabakola Muchi, I don't know, but he was flagging these boys. And they are young boys, really. You can see them. I think these are boys who are like 17, 16. You can see they're not grown up. First of all, this is child labor, right? In Uganda, you're not allowed to make a young boy work until someone is 18 years. Then you're that person is capable, according to the constitution.
Mm,
That is the age where you should make someone work. We have had Chinese actually forcing young African children to work in hard situation, like in mines, all right, like in mines and other things. And actually,
mm,
so when you look at the constitution, which again stands in to condemn child labor, all right, because we believe children who are not yet 18 years shouldn't be working in Africa. These are children who are still under their parental care, and but we again see a lot of Chinese trying to, of course, use these children in harsh conditions. You find these children mining. A lot of them have died actually. That some of them have been covered with landslides, with mud and all that. And I know the African governments are watching this because I know they inspect the Chinese facilities. The reason why Chinese would rather use these young miners to work for them is because these children cannot stand and defend, first of all, their salary. Any small amount makes them happy because they even don't know their worth. They don't know what they should be, of course, working for and how hectic. And I feel like they even want to use them, exploit their childhoodness. And which is a little bit not fair because if you are an African and you're using a young child to do this kind of things, then you get arrested. But Chinese are going scot free. And like I was trying to say, when the Chinese had come here, their first target was about sexual harassment, sexual violation, harassment, and all that that they used to do to the young girls here. And after Chinese realized that there is nobody who's defending these young little girls in Africa, and Chinese are going scot free with pregnating them, of course, giving them various sexual transmitted diseases and all that. Chinese realize that these children have got nobody to defend them. All right, because we didn't see people standing out to defend these little innocent souls that were being harassed by and defiled, raped, and of course, their childhood stolen by the Chinese. I recall there is a scenario where we were told that most of these young girls that the Chinese would sleep or have sex with were virgins. Chinese had
I guess by the way, this is the video. I hope everyone watched this.
for that action. I think we are waiting to see what the police is saying. We saw them, of
South
course.
Africa.
Nalabye nanga ng'agyogerako.
Mm. So,
You see?
what? Take.
You see? And those are young boys. They're not even 18 years yet. All right. Kati ekirowooza tabayisaamu kyamu.
Nze nekirwa kuba
nze sirina bugumiikiriza
wabeerawo ababakuuma and they are blacks.
Kati ekyo kye
Those people who guide those Chinese, they are blacks.
Nze kati ekyo I don't know. I don't have that patience. I don't know because bankuba nze sometimes nze nja kufa kuba nze ebyo tusobola kunkubeeza ombooko nga nyinza okugwira ekigulu ekyo n'enkirumu. Agamwongera ekitebe. So you can see that we cannot be mistreated in China.
And by the way, that is not the first incident. There is
I guess that was the incident that was in Rwanda. That was in Rwanda when they tied that man on the pole. I remember, and I watched that video, and knowing a little bit of Kinyarwanda, there is a black man who was behind. Like I always tell you guys, when this you can see them, you can see these people. So I watched that video years back, and I had all the communication that, of course, was taking place. But that place was, of course, in Rwanda, and that is the Chinese man who was arrested. And of course, arrested and sentenced for 20 years in Rwanda. And of course, China and other organizations, of course, came out to, of course, rule out this issue. And of course, and that's when we got to understand that Beijing does not allow its people to be convicted here in Africa. When that video circulated, I think it was 3 to 4 years ago.
2022.
Yeah. 2 years something ago. I really watched that video, though now I don't know whether there is some audio in the video, but you hear those, they were speaking Kinyarwanda, they were speaking Rwandese, and the men in the background were asking this man who was on that pole, and they were trying to ask him that where did you take the things? You show us where you took the things. And it was like, I didn't take anything. And these other colleagues were trying to say, they helped you to give you a place to stay, and this is how you decided to pay them and something. There is usually a lot of conspiracies. Now look at that one. Now they're having some logs, like
not even logs.
They are
Those
pangas.
metals. They are metals.
You can see. And like I always say, these ones are usually young boys. You see? They're going to break his legs.
Yeah.
And I wonder how you watch such kind of a video and still feel like you have connections with this kind of idiots, really. I hate watching some other things because they turn me to be someone who is so cruel towards some other people, and at times I feel like I don't want to know whether you are involved in this kind of things or not. But at times the things we see engineer the hate in us, that the hate becomes so uncontrollable. All right. Jim Jabba says that the last one they were hitting with the metro was dating a Chinese girl. Take it. So we have seen a lot of.
Now that one happened in Zimbabwe, and there are a lot of Chinese in Zimbabwe. Very many of
but
them.
you cannot pick on the street. And by the way, let me tell you now the funniest thing. Don't you see? I hope the video we saw of Chinese flogging those two young boys. I hope that video isn't in Uganda. But of course, I saw the Inspector General,
police spokesman.
oh sorry, the police spokesperson in Nanga speaking about that video. That means it was here, and then he said that they are going to arrest the Chinese man. This, you can do this kind of bullshit somewhere, but I'm telling you, Ugandans are good at retaliating. Now you can wait for a video where you are going to see someone pay for this bullshit. I'm telling you, there is a situation like the Chinese now. Indians have come down in Uganda, despite Indians doing a lot of bullshit. They have come down a little. There is a time when the president had embarrassing, and I'm 500 miles away. I know, Japa. I know. There is a when the president of Uganda had allowed the Indians to come back. They came back with their old styles. All right, Indians were also beaten. Indians were also beaten up. Of course, Ugandans anyhow. All right, to the point that they pushed our Ugandan young youth. I think he was around 17 yards from a rooftop, and he died. And I can tell you, there's some Indians who ran back to India and they've never come back. Ugandans said, "All right, the dust we are in Uganda." We are in Uganda, and thank you for joining our live. We are talking about Chinese brutality in Africa, and where are you watching from, Didas? So we saw Ugandans retaliating, and I remember that time I was in my primary school, so they had sent me to a window. I'd gone to buy some stuff. He's in Greece. Didas, all right. Didas. Jim Jama say that we are in Wakanda. Didas, thank you so much for watching us live. And of course, you're welcome on Black Hole Fire Network. And we hope you stay and feel at home here on Black Hole Fire Network, is where we talk about a lot of issues concerning Black people all over the world, and Africa in particular. Thank you for watching us from Greece, and we hope you're doing fine. So, like I was telling you, I saw tear gas. I think it was my first time to see a chaotic environment at that time. I was very young. I didn't know what to do, and I didn't know what to do. I was a little bit confused. Tear gas everywhere, and people were killing Indians. Bari batabayindi. They bangaba bajja mu kalina.
Africans.
Ugandans.
Sorry.
You see where there is that Shiri Mosque. Back when there is that Shiri Mosque up like on Shell. Now there is this one down as you're coming from Chiseka. You are heading to the clock tower. All right. So there is that whenever we are seeing the old temples of Indians in the old days, there is that place that Waluwalabanga, they were worshipping the tree stuff. I think that place has changed now, but the shrine is still there, or the temple, like they call it. So people were throwing others. That temple, Indians evacuated that place until the president had to handle that issue calmly. Now Indians knew. Now the Chinese are also going to know. Me, I'm telling you the thing, and we shall be here telling you what of course is going to happen. And you remember there is a scenario where a policeman went and shot a money lender. an Indian
I
moneylender.
remember. I remember.
Now, if that previous incidents had never happened, you would see how Indians would start, misbehaving. But of course, they handled the matter. We are related with Chani. They went and buried that moneylender. Of course, they had to arrest this police officer who shot the moneylender and all that. But if we had not seen that incident where Ugandans had to retaliate and show the Indians that this is not your home, all right, I know the incidents where the police officer shot dead this Indian man, of course on camera because the entire world watched this. You would see how violent those people were going to be. And now I think this is the action that Chinese need. They need to be put in their right places. They need to be taught a very good lesson. A very good lesson. Now you cannot be fooling people like that. You cannot be flogging grown-ass men like that. You cannot come in Africa and pregnant young girls. If in Africa you pregnant a young girl, you get arrested by the Human Rights Association. They tell you have raped, you have defiled. If at all the girl is not yet 18 years, you go for 7 years in prison. And if a girl is of course, the more than 7, because 7 is for defilement. But again, they will say there is also rape because this girl has no mind to, probably this girl is not in the right mind to consent to the actions. You understand? So that you get arrested in Africa. So if African men cannot, at a risk, if at all an African man tries to pregnant a girl who is under 18, is taken to prison for 7 years plus, and then a Chinese comes in and is even raping, defiling, pregnating those who are even not to age of 12, not to the age of 13, and we don't see action being, of course, taken. Now, Chinese, they have their rituals. Those people have their own belief, just like they believe that our beef, the African meat, is organic and it is medicinal. All right. So Chinese feel like it is okay for you to eat an African human because it's medicine. And I believe that when you eat an African flesh, you prolong your life. You're bound to live longer. That means you are building the strength of your immune system. You are boosting your immune system. You are increasing on your CD4s and all that when you eat African flesh. Now, if we have those people here and they're doing all those kind of inhuman crimes, and then their government, of course, says you are not allowed to condemn a Chinese in an African country. We saw that video where we saw this man who was tied on a pole and being hit by a Chinese man in the presence of other Rwandese men who are in support of the action of the Chinese man. Of course, when this video circulated all over the internet, the government of Rwanda arrested this man and sentenced him to 20 years. And Beijing, of course, came out and was like, there is no African country that is allowed to sentence a Chinese person, no matter. And then I also got to remember there is a scenario where we had, I think, I saw that a Chinese man was having like group sex with young Ugandan girls. And whenever they want to have, they usually want to have the virgin girls. For them, they believe there is, I guess, whatever a man gains from having sex with a virgin. I don't know whether there are no more virgins in China, or it is particularly, it should be a virgin African girl or what, I don't know. So this man was having group sex with these young girls. And these young girls were brought to him as maids. There is, when these people are committing these kind of crimes, there is usually other black people who are behind this. Because this Chinese man cannot just go anyhow and pick virgin girls unless someone is looking for those virgin girls and finding them for that Chinese. So how did they realize this? After some time,
What
K.
are
Williams.
people you doing?
Thank you, you're welcome. We are doing fine. Are you okay? We hope you're doing good too. So, how did these people realize? These Chinese had, you know, where they usually rent their houses. They don't rent within the community. It is very hard to find these Chinese renting in a community of other people. Either they will decide to build like the houses we saw when you are going to your village. Hmm? Isolated places where they are able to commit their crimes and no one is seeing, where they are able to eat the African flesh and no one will understand or will find out. Just like recently in Kenya, where the women were seeing, every woman was asking, my wife, my husband didn't come back yesterday. And you know, I don't know where my husband is at. And after 3 days, another wife is asking another, my husband too has not come from work today, only to realize that these husbands were being eaten by their Chinese bosses. They hit them on the head and they keep them. They were killing and eating them. Check it. And when these cases, whenever they happen, of course, China comes in and takes their people. Back to the story I was telling you, after the people, of course, realize that there's always young girls entering in this Chinese apartment, and then people had to, of course, call on the police, only to find even these young girls were even all of them were pregnant by the Chinese. And the people who started beating up the Chinese man until the police came. When the police came, from nowhere, this case did not surface again. And I was even trying to look for these videos because they were circulating all over YouTube. So I was trying to look for these videos, but you cannot find any of that information on YouTube. That means the government of Uganda, of course, collaborated with the government of China to export this Chinese man back, all right, to China. And we are not sure whether these people are serving the sentence. But there is one thing I know for sure, and this the government of China should not deny. We know whatever Chinese are doing here is a mission, and they are on mission and they have been sent to do this. All right, because there is no way you can commit a lot of crimes like that. All right, I think they have a comfortability, they have that untouchable feel that even though we do such kind of things, after all our president knows, after all our leaders know why we are doing this. And because they are doing a lot of crimes with no fear, with no shame. All right. And I'm expecting to see Africans, of course, standing out and opposing this kind of barbaric, inhuman behavior that, of course, is being subjected to both the African workers, the young girls, in the communities where the Chinese, of course, are living here in Africa. I don't think there is any African who will go to China and commit such kind of things and go scot free. Because even a slapping a Chinese person can put you on a life sentence. But you come to Africa and you think you have the right to do all that you're doing and nobody should say anything about it. And then the government of China, of course, claims that they are the ones who are supposed to handle such kind of cases. Are the Chinese VIP in Africa? Because you have seen this. Go get her, go, mom.
So Chinese actually the way they mistreat people, African decent people in China.
Mm.
It's also on a higher level. These people are racists, and very
Mm.
many people don't know about this. When you talk about racism and discrimination, while of course Chinese investment has of course these people of course invested a lot in Africa
But they have not
through
invested, they have financed.
through their infrastructure loans
Yeah, yeah,
in
yeah, yeah.
African countries.
They're
We
poor
see that
houses.
during the construction of course Madalaka Express railway line in Kenya, allegations of racism surfaced. Kenyan journalists of course reported that Chinese workers refused to share tables with their African colleagues during the lunchtime,
Mm,
and insults and humiliations were common
mm,
during this
mm.
time.
Even their own train.
Mm,
When you enter in that train, there is no any African, safety
mm,
instruction or
mm,
caution instruction.
mm.
All the whatever the writings there are in Chinese.
Mm.
Kind of
So,
nonsense.
talking about the cultural differences and of course a rich co-work mindsets like do what the boss says,
Mm,
and the poor working conditions for the Chinese workers in Africa, mining and of course construction sectors contribute to potential conflicts.
mm,
Talking about like Chinese, this is a group of people. This is a group of foreigners in, of course, African countries that give Africans extremely little pay to these African people, and you must work. You like, like in African in Afri in in Chinese in Chinese work, or you don't get sick, you
eh,
don't lose someone, you have to be working every time
24/7.
24/7. So additionally, we see that China's political indoctrination, which emphasizes single Chinese identity and culture, may play a role in shaping attitudes towards Africans. These people are trying to, of course, to create identities in African countries, which is bad. K. Williams says that the Chinese are not untouchable. The puppets on the continent just sold out their people. This is true. This is true. The other time, I was like, there is time we heard about Lake Victoria in Uganda that was partitioned by by the Chinese. The plots, they were plots plots of water within Lake Victoria. They were sold to these Chinese. So this is something terrible where we see that the Africans, the able leaders we see in African countries that of course people call actually dictators, they're working for these people because they turned to the east. They're now dealing with the Asians rather than the USA. They're dealing with Russia and the Chinese. So, by the way, Lando says that good evening, greetings, farm, Innosetu and Maria. Good evening.
We are fine, Lando.
Mm,
Good evening to you.
you're doing good, Lando. You're doing good and good and good and good and good and good. So, um, talking about this, of course, recent photo where we saw a Chinese man, of course, wiping Africans, or actually on the head. Maybe they think that Africans, if you hit them on the head, they understand faster. I was like, this guy was like, they get fast. I was sitting like, so we have seen kidnappings and protests. So as Chinese presence grows in Africa, we see that Chinese employees and companies in Africa face risks of kidnapping, violence, protests that have occurred. Within the Chinese companies, we have seen a lot of people being, of course, kidnapped within these Chinese companies. And working in these companies, it is something that is, I've ever seen any Chinese company in the morning when like you may see like 3,000 people. They are going, yeah, they are going inside to work. In the evening, they release them just like animals. Yeah. Once you go inside to work in a Chinese company, you go for work. They go in the morning, you find them. Yeah, I normally see them on the way. Yeah, you see them moving in a straight line to the company. In the evening, they open the gate at 6. Yeah, like yeah, these people look like slaves. In the evening at 6, you see people moving out of these companies, and they don't provide them actually with accommodation. Hmm? They don't provide them with akacupa kamutwala kamutwala akacupa kati ni kamutwala. Hey, Jeep Jabba, good to see you, my brother. Hope you all well with you. That is Lando. So, whenever, like you talked about how, of course, our wives in Kenya were talking, were saying they were looking for their people are being kidnapped within these companies. This is so. This is something that is serious. Besides mistreatment, you'd rather beat someone but not kidnap.
They kidnap them and they beef them. They are using them as tinned meat. So Jabba, you be careful with eating tinned meat. You are going to eat Maria unknowingly. When the Chinese have kidnapped me. Baba take Baba Fumba.
So we see that earlier this year, armed groups backed by a U.S. Military company kidnapped Chinese workers at the gold mine in the Central African Republic. 2 cases related to kidnapping people in Africa. So we see that silence on human rights issues. African nations have, of course, largely remained silent on Chinese human rights record, especially concerning issues like, of course, Hong Kong debate. By the way, I don't know why African presidents trust these Chinese when it comes to politics. However much these people pretend like they are not playing politics in African countries, but they play a certain point or a certain kind of politics in African countries. We have seen that China. Is it Hong Kong or Taiwan? Always say agala okufuna obwetowaze. Like for them, yeah.
Okay. What's the song? I don't know sense.
China. Taiwan. Did I say Taiwan? So Taiwan wants independence from China. The Chinese government has killed a lot of people in Taiwan. Protesters who want, of course, independence. China. So African presidents shouldn't, of course, take this for granted. If at all these people have killed a lot of people in Taiwan,
Chinese.
yeah, in Taiwan. How about Africans? How about Africans? When you look at competition for labor of course, in Africa by the Chinese and of course Africans, you see these fake loans they provide, the infrastructure loans they provide to Africa. We see almost like every work is done by these Chinese, starting with truck drivers to people that cook food for these people. They're Chinese. They do. You find Chinese within those camp areas. Yeah, you find Chinese within these camp areas doing almost everything. I've never seen. For me, I was making a jazz with someone. I was like, for me, if I was a government, I wouldn't allow these Chinese to come with all these workers. Wherever they construct these roads, there are a lot of people that are unemployed in those areas. They would have employed these, of course, local people to these companies to engage in this construction work, but we see Chinese, real
And now
Chinese.
that the Chinese itself has a high rate of unemployment. More especially nowadays they are trying to succumb that. But of course during the days where Chinese rapidly came in Africa, there was a high rate of unemployment among Chinese youths. You take it out. So them getting these contracts of infrastructure construction here in Africa, it gave them that gap of employing their unemployed people. All right, yeah, of employing their unemployed people, and of course also giving in with of course cheap labor to the Chinese government. Okay, and I think usually Chinese are focusing a lot probably on hiding their construction styles or whatever. All right, they want to do it secretively. Maybe they think Africans will get to know how they are doing, because it is said that China is among the countries that are good in constructions. But when it comes to Africa, of course, everything they are doing is extremely fake, with all the
Besides,
materials that are fake.
besides being fake, whatever they used to construct, they find it here.
They
Apart from
manufacture it.
apart from the apart from the cement stuff, but if you look at of course, if you look at those babita bate
The time,
mayinja bichani,
the rocks
the
that are used
rock,
in foundation.
sand stuff. These are
But
things that they
look
find
at
here.
that. They find them here.
Mm,
The Chinese mine the things.
mm.
You have not seen the sand factory or the sand company for the Chinese,
However,
and it is there when you are heading to your village.
mm,
Now, those are the people who are supplying to these companies. They don't want to buy materials from the local people.
mm,
And if they are told, if at all they want rocks to, of course, use at the foundation level, they still have places where they do the quarrying from. Shagada.
mm,
And there is no way Chinese are supporting local market in Africa. They want to involve themselves in everything.
mm,
Shagada. Even the water that they are using to do this, they are trying so very much to make sure that there is no money that is coming from a China that is going in an African pocket. And even with the low wages that they are giving to the African workers in their companies, on top of that, they add violence to it. So it is like they, and by the way, the funniest thing, Bangaba, when the Chinese people pay you salary, that's when they become more brutal. I guess it pisses them off to see that they are giving given this little money that they are giving to the people that they are exploiting throughout the day. You work in from morning to evening, no food, no water, and at the end of the month, even the little money they are giving you, then someone wants to hit you on top of that money. So there is no Chinese people. There is no Chinese people who do business with Africans. We even hardly see them in our markets. Together, they want to involve in everything. All these greens, um, um, the vegetables, they want to plant them on their own. Second, they want to plant them. They don't want to go, because we would be seeing a huge population of Chinese in the markets,
mm,
because we have very many Chinese. You see that? But they want to plant everything. They want to in those areas they want to plant whatever it is that they want to eat, and they feel like they cannot acquire Africans any money that is coming from the Chinese, because the purpose of China coming to Africa is to suck,
mm.
not to inject. So they make sure that they suck the hell out of Africans. All right, they suck everything they find. Apart from omwenge, ngabanye emyenge ne sigara. Sigara zabalimu okumanufacturing.
So that is of course China.
Tuhadde oyogera ku politics y'Abachina.
Hmm?
How do you have politics?
Like a lot of African countries look at African leaders, if I may say, look at these Chinese as people who are not of course political oriented in African issues. They are not of course interested in African political situation, whether who is ruling Africa, who is what. But these people be bamu ku balemezaawo ku bannakyemalira wano mu Africa because they support these people. They know how politics runs in these countries. Because these are people, going Gambia, these are the same people that of course that are killing Taiwan, that are killing Taiwan people, Mhm. that are killing Taiwan people. These are people that of course that are causing a lot of insecurities in Taiwan. But we see them in Africa. Instead, we see that Chinese investment in Africa seems to be motivated solely by the prospects of Chinese economic gains. They are looking for opportunity to extract raw minerals and of course sell manufactured products to the African market. So a scenario that of course somewhat resembles the Africa's colonial past. In addition, many Chinese investments also involve the use of extensive Chinese labor, which creates problems for local unemployment. So, very many people of course, will say that Chinese have done something in Africa. At least where those countries we have seen a lot of Chinese countries that have, of course, got investment. Yesterday, it was yesterday when, of course, the president of Uganda addressed the traders in Uganda. The guy was like, people were like, we are seeing a lot of Chinese. Actually, I think this was the answer for this. Like Chinese, we see them in fields. We see Chinese; they are the manufacturers. The president said that I mean, that is that is rubbish. That is what he said. The president said that that is rubbish. It was like 70% of the car or of the companies in of course in Namambe, they are of course are led by Ugandans. They are owned by the Ugandans. They are owned by Ugandans. So which Museveni- so should we think that the small the small numbers we see moving in those villages with vehicles selling oil, selling small things, bibiriti, noodles. Eh? So those African puppets know the Chinese people are no good. They do not care. They just want the money. Which money do the Chinese bring here? Because even the roads they constructed K Williams here, like the bypass, we have to pay for that road. Okulukozesa ate wali otunuuliddeko sayidi eri lwaka we bakolekitingira ssente waka bulungi weewati oluguudo okuluyitako tekimanyi nti express bagisasulira okugiyitako ng'oyiseko express paka Ntebe tekimanyi nti no bagisasulira kyupe
lwakabinya
nga kuba nti terubeerako jjaamu naye ate ayise ekibuye ayinza okusooka ayise ku express Entebbe irrespective of jam eri express mpanvu it is long. You pay some money and it goes to the Chinese government because like they provide infrastructure loans. So it is we Ugandans to pay for these loans, not the government.
For how long shall people pay for that road?
I don't know.
Because they should estimate.
I don't know over miaka chikumi 100 years. Over 100 years. So that is it. Sebo nno kwali Jobi oba Kewiriye.
At that time, like I was trying to say, we did not. Uh, we have experienced that kind of brutality not for a very short while, and it's so unfortunate that Africans have been neglected when it comes to that. I think a lot of people no sound said to I can't hear a damn thing.
Mm.
Yeah, sorry.
Mm.
Oh. Mm,
Okay.
there's another
Let,
thing.
let me hope. Let me hope we. I don't know whether we are clear now.
So we've been okay now.
Yeah.
I hear. Okay,
Okay.
okay. So um, not like I was saying, and so I've been talking when this people have not been hearing. But of course, we've we have noticed a series of pornographic activities that Chinese have indulged in,
Mm.
where they're using young African children,
Mm.
the girls, to do pornographic actions,
Mm.
and of course, and they are selling this on different websites, and they are making these African girls say things in Chinese. I don't know whatever the things they are saying, and but I know one time we are going to get to understand, but it won't surprise you to hear when these young girls are calling themselves slaves, monkeys, and stuff like that.
Mm.
You understand? Because I don't think these Chinese are teaching any romantic words to these young girls that, of course, they are pushing to do this pornographic videos. And it is also recorded that most of these girls don't really know that they are doing pornography.
Mm.
But and most of them indulge in sexual activities with the Chinese when Chinese have put hidden cameras.
Mm.
You understand? And it started in a very weird way, whereby the people who are, of course, indulging in this were given a certain amount of money, and it kept them coming and inviting others to join. And this has grown rapidly. So we have a pornographic
Mm.
site where you find young African girls doing, porn and all that. And actually, this money still goes to selected or the Chinese people who are involving in this. And we know that Africa itself has neglected itself for a very long time, because if this cannot be called a relationship, if there are such kind of acts, it cannot be called a relationship, it cannot be called a friendship,
Mm.
it cannot be called investment.
Mm.
I think on Chinese involvement with Africa, they should remove that word of China growing Africa positively. Because, despite of all the things, there are a lot of important things that actually come before the infrastructure. There are a lot of important things that come before whatever it is that China is claiming to be doing in Africa. Because if you're aiming at attacking a young generation, if you're aiming at attacking young girls in Africa, if you're aiming at this, of course, doing all those kind of barbaric acts towards the young children of Africa, then it's a war, it's a generational war. This is a war that China is waging against Africa's population. I think poverty has pushed us to only focus on probably what China is doing. What is the essence of China as a country to build whatever infrastructure it claims it's building when Africa is losing the young generation? to the sexual transmitted infections that Chinese are giving to the young girls. It's of course these children are losing their innocence, and of course their childhood is being taken away. They are defiling the entire legacy of Africa's childhood and upbringing. And whom are you building these infrastructures for, really? Whom are you building these infrastructures for? But of course, I was also trying to tell you guys that we've seen scenarios, these issues of people coming in countries and raping and impregnating and crossbreeding with the Africans has not begun just of recent with the Chinese. This has been on for a very long time. We are not we are not seeing young or black men having or indulging in a lot of sexual activities with the Chinese women, but rather we are seeing a lot of Chinese men involving in sexual activities with the African women. Now, there is a tendency that a lot of Africans, more especially the African women, have not been told their value. All right, in this society where you're not being told your real value, apart from the feminism thing that I'm supposed to be competing with the men and all that, if African women were told their value, there would be no reason for an African woman to want to compete with a man. Because when you understand the value you have within your family, your society, the community, and Africa as a whole, you'll get to understand that you have a lot to do than even a man has. And unfortunately, the outside world really knows the value of an African woman, and they're trying to attack that really, please.
Yeah, not so serious. Go ahead. Baba tebakala. I don't think we. Test sound, test sound, test sound. Microphone check 1 2.
We don't know if you are audible. StreamYard had, we don't know. The network was good. We could reach other sites and places, but StreamYard had, of course, leaked out. I don't know what had happened, so we had to re-enter. And at times when you re-enter, then there's usually an issue with your voice because now there are like two streams on one channel and stuff like that. But we hope our voices are audible enough. Whoever is watching, please you can comment and let us know that we shouldn't be talking to ourselves.
Mhm.
Hmm. So meanwhile, we shall continue with what we were, of course, talking about. We hope.
Kakuzesenga tine sente mitwalo ataano. About 30.
We hope.
Mhm. Mhm.
We hope our our voices are audible enough. And oh, wait, maybe that I don't need. So we have had a lot of incidences of course, brutality of people who usually want to have pride in Africa. We've had this, by the way, through the colonization time. Together, we had the scenario of the French, we had the scenario of the German, we had the scenario of the British, the Portuguese, and the Dutch, the Boers, and everybody who, of course, wants to come and exploit Africa. They not only want to exploit the minerals, but the emotions, the psychological emotions of Africans. And I think when someone tries to attack you in such kind of behavior or manner, that means they are reducing, of course, your strength as a person, and they are psychologically torturing you to lower or degrade you to be, on that obedient level. All right. And I think these people have, for a very long time, exhibited that, of course, sense that makes us, more especially the Africans, think that we are low in their eyes. Because if you're a grown ass man and you are trying to flog your fellow grown ass man, that means you're trying to show or showcase a certain hierarchy level towards this person, or like they're not humans, or like they're not, because they're animals that should be flogged like that, really. And I don't know the culture between flogging. I don't know the culture essence of China and the floats. Though when we are watching a lot of Chinese movies, then you will see people flogging others. The teachers flogging the students who are learning kung fu, all that. All right, so I think they use this flog culture in China a lot. But before that, we're also going to take you through the stories of different people who have, of course, tried to reach out to Africa's resources and end up also barbarically and brutally, of course, harming Africans. And we have seen, I know sometimes these people use this as a weapon of imposing fear or putting fear in the Africans. And unfortunately, the Chinese are doing this at the wrong time. We are not our ancestors. And I think you have seen a lot of actions.
Yes.
Dakota Castle. Amambaze mbete. So nonyako tulabiba French bayisa batya basiba teba kukuguka tugereko no kukirala. French brutality. So like we were saying, a lot of people who claim to, of course, want to have access to Africa I've also done this. So this is not new, and I think it is a way of imposing, of course, fear in people. They try to impart fear in people so that the people, shouldn't become so, of course, violent, and they want these people to be so obedient to them. So we are going to see, of course, little. We are going to, of course, talk about little stories about some other countries, more especially those who have interest in Africa, just like China does now, have been, all, of course, handling Africa in a very brutal manner possible. All right, I'll first later, set to take you guys through that a little bit.
So like we've had Chinese, of course, in Africa. They are taken to be, of course, we are looking at Chinese at a wide scale as, of course, colonizers. They are also colonial masters now. So we've had a lot of people that have been in, of course, in Africa doing a lot. We had, of course, the British here in Africa,
Mm.
and they're still here. We had USA. What do you call that? Eh, we are. Akan okasembus. So we had the French, like I said, the French were here. We have
The German.
the Germans here. But talking about the French, we see that France should not actually be synonymous with the word freedom, as with the colonial, with all colonial empires, its history is of course soaked with the blood of the oppressed peoples across the globe, and its record of course, perpetuating violence continues in, of course, African countries, and that's why very many presidents that are coming out, of course, in most of the West African countries, they are chasing out these French people because they have tested uh, the brutality, they have tested the mistreatment, and of course, harassment of these French people. So, the size of the territory claimed by the French Empire in the 19th and the 20th centuries was second only to Britain. So, because actually during the 19th and the 20th century, the big powers, the superpowers we had, they were French and the Britain, I guess.
Mm.
There were those two countries. So, from North Africa to Southeast Asia, the Middle East to the South Pacific, we see that millions were subjugated and, of course, repressed and murdered as the French rulers scrambled to secure resources and markets for the manufactured goods and profitable investments. So, it was only in the face of the heroic mass struggles by the colonized determined to win their independence that France was eventually forced to secede control in the 1950s and 60s, and lately of course, in Burkina Faso. We see that from the outset of the French colonialism in, of course, Vietnam, any form of political dissent uh, was met with, of course, repression. We see that books and newspapers deemed subversive, of course, were of course confiscated, and colonial political activists were sentenced to death or imprisoned on highland fortresses. So the of course, Tesuic violence would only escalate after the defeat of the Japanese in the Pacific War. The French ruling class was determined to re-establish its control over the Vietnam. So in 1946, shortly after the Second World War, we see that the Prime Minister ordered the shelling of of course, the hype for killing of over 6,000 Vietnamese. It wasn't until the 1954 Battle of course, then being flour, we see that the National Liberation Forces drove the French out of the country. So violence was part of the fabric of the French rule wherever they were. Let it be Africa, let it be Africa or anywhere in the world. So the best farmland was of course concentrated in the hands of the colonialists and their collaborators, leaving the majority of the peasants vulnerable to the famine. So some 2 million people in most of the African countries, of course, died and were killed by these French people. Uh, uh, the French people, the French people, just like, of course, the Germans, these were the most brutal people. These were the most. We are seeing Chinese again. We are seeing Chinese today in Africa doing doing a lot of atrocities.
Mm,
But these are not the first people. However, the Chinese existence is not as old as the French, the British, and others.
mm.
But like Africans, we don't learn from, of course, what we went through. Africans, we don't learn from our past. Because if at all our ancestors went through a lot, went through mistreatment, because any foreign people in Africa, their characteristics, their traits are the same:
Mm,
mistreatment, rape, stealing of resources, and others. Look at the Russia, which most of the West African countries are praising. Last, I think we once had a topic here. We once had a discussion here about Russian brutality and Russian, of course, how Wagner people were killing a lot of people in West Africa. Together, a lot
mm,
of families have been left. A lot of kids have been left with no parents. Parents have been killed in the
mm,
process. So let's learn as Africans. Let's learn from, of course, our past. Let's learn from our history, because you can't tell me that uh, of course, the French killed people in, of course, in Burkina Faso and other West African countries, and now we see Chinese and, of course, the Russia in those countries. They are guarding mines. These are people that are looking at Chinese. These are people that are competing with the local people
mm,
in market, in trade. They're competing with the local people in trade. They're having manufacturing industries in different African countries, but still they go in for retail. They
mm.
hawk their products, their poor quality products. So it is something, no, I don't know. It is something that is terrible, to, of course, to a larger extent. So, so I don't know whether African presidents deliberately intend, of course, to do this to their people, but Africa experienced a lot of massacres during, of course, colonial period by different colonial masters. Talking about Talking about massacres in Algeria, of course, in 1945, these actually should act as examples, should act as, of course, learning, of course, learning. They should act as learning guidelines about. Sorry, Sorry.
You quit playing with the sound.
Eh? Kalamanye gange. So, like I was saying that we have seen a lot of massacres, massacres in, of course, in Africa that could have of course acted as that could have acted as examples, as guidelines on, of course, on what is going in Africa. So I want to relate the topic that, I'm sorry, I didn't I know that we didn't have sound. I'm sorry for that, Jib Jabba, and all other people that are watching us from different, of course, platforms. But what I was trying to say is that Africa has had a lot of massacres during colonial period and even up to today. However, today people are not. A lot of people have been killed and silenced. They are not known. But what some of the known massacres we have seen in history, we can't forget about the massacres in Algeria, where people were celebrating the Allied victory over Germany, in which Algerian native troops took part. We see that banned demonstrations of Algerian nationalists of the most of the Constantine department in the eastern part of the country. In the Stiff, the protests turned into a riot after the intervention of the police forces. So this riot then spread to the area between the Stiff and, of course, Begi. We see that repression was organized by the army and to a lesser extent by civilian population. So the death toll still unknown. We see that probable numbers in many thousands in, of course, Gurema, a small town between Constantine and, of course, Bone or Anaba. A demonstrator was killed. There was no, of course, casualties among the French population. However, we see that 12 French people were killed between the 1,000 and, of course, 2,000 Muslims that had died by that time. So most of them in the hands of the civilian people. We see that the death toll has not yet been, of course, precisely established. However, we know that it included over 102 people that were killed during that time. We also have massacres that, of course, happened in 1961 in Angola, where we see that in 1961 unleashed the first attacks on the colonial farms and villages in northern Angola. In this massacre, hundreds of the whites and, of course, black settlers were killed and, of course, mutilated in the coffee farms in depots, Nengagi. So the Nabugongo, many were hacked to death. No one escaped the massacre. So men, women, and children, black and white. The fury of the UPA, the later called FNLA, the National Front for Liberation of Angola, spared no one by that time. So the accounts of the day are many. We see that in less than 48 hours, throughout the districts of Zaire and, of course, Wiki is the deemed devastations, plantations and lonely houses were looted and set on fire. So villages were razed to the ground. So the siege was laid on the villages and, of course, small elements. So their supplies were cut off, roads and means of communications were destroyed during that time. So if you're joining in right about now, I'm trying actually to list down some of the massacres we have seen in Africa for the past years. So there is what was called, of course, Benin expedition in, of course, 1897, where we see that the Benin punitive expedition, also known as the 1897 expedition, was a military mission that led by British forces, which included over 1,200 men under the command of course, Admiral Sir Harry Rawson, who, of course, invaded Benin City. So the capital of the Kingdom of Benin. The campaign lasted for 17 days, and, of course, invading forces took over total control of the kingdom. So the British exhibition was primarily an act of course, reprisal for the attacks and for the attacks suffered by, of course, the colony of British officers led by the acting Consul General James Phillips by that time, and the indigenous soldiers, of course, disguised as the porters and musicians who in 1897 attempted to reach Benin City to attack the city and dispose of Oba. So only two officers survived the attack, which became known as the Benin Massacre. However, the expedition was part of the British attempts to control the region and annex Benin to exploit its resources by that time.
Mm.
So we also had massacres in Congo, where we see that all these kind of killings, all these violences I'm talking about, they were not led by Africans. When you look at them, these are of course these are intended massacres. We saw that that were led by, of course, either the colonizers or uh, the supporters of the colonizers. They are assimilated people in Africa.
So
So
apparently, we have
see.
had these issues that, of course,
Mm.
have been ongoing for a very long time throughout the days
Let me
these
make it.
people
Let me make a little correction there, Maria. How you guys doing?
Doing
are
good.
going.
I'm here. It's the Lord. Anyway, 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 Benin, the Benin Empire was not in the country of Benin, which you call today. Benin Empire was in Nigeria. Um, the Benin Kingdom was in present day Nigeria, not Benin, not the country of Benin that they call today. Country of Benin was actually what they call today was part of Dahomey. That was the Dahomey Empire. Those are those wretched ass bastards who were helping Europeans enslave African people. And when you get the term of the Amazonian women, those are those wretched ass niggas who were in cahoots that helped the Europeans capture other Africans and enslave them. So I don't give a damn when their empire got finally crushed by the Europeans because they were in cahoots. That's mostly Benin. What you see today is the Benin country. But the empire or the kingdom of Benin was in Nigeria, in what they call Edo State. That was in Nigeria, not the country of Benin. So those are a lot of times people get those confused. You say the kingdom of Benin, and then people say the Beninian country today are completely separate. The Benin kingdom was in modern day Nigeria.
Mm.
So I just wanted to correct that part right there.
Thank you.
So that's it. That's all. That's all. That's all I wanted to come in to make sure we understood that and they leveled that kingdom to the ground. The British went in, burned the city down to the ground, and they buried it because they wanted to make the narrative that Africans never had any kingdoms or were savages. So every kingdom the British and the French came into, they razed it to the ground, and they buried all remnants of it. They try to say it was never any civilization in Africa, and then teach the children, 150 years ago when they came in, so they'll perpetuate that lie to their generations. And we got some Africans believe, oh, the European came and brought us civilization. You're like, what? Are you insane? Are you crazy? But that's
Yeah.
that's why they wanted to perpetuate that when they destroyed it, because the Benin kingdom was very intricate and very advanced for its time, and when they destroyed it, the Africans again are kind and loving. They thought they just wanted to trade with them. They didn't want to trade with you Africans. They wanted to dominate and take over your wealth. And too
mm,
sadly enough, the African found the hard way in Central City. Next you know you in Africa working on their plantations from the land that they stole from you.
mm,
So it's been a it's been a vicious relationship with these people. Sadly enough. Go ahead, guys. I didn't want to interrupt. I just wanted to come in. I heard you guys talking about this. Come in, just make that one,
okay.
make that,
Yeah.
make that, make that one distinction heard. Dang, as soon as I came in, the numbers went up crazy. Dang, that's got 600 people. As soon as I get in, all the numbers start popping up.
Mm,
And you guys got 500 people the last minute since I came in here. But
mm.
yeah,
Zamemeka.
so you guys can check. What's the conversation about anyway? What are you guys talking about anyway? The massacres in Africa?
No, no. We have been talking about actually our topic today was Chinese brutality in Africa. We derived this topic about we were seeing we were watching a certain video, trending video. It has been trending on TikTok and Twitter about a Chinese man, of course, flogging
Oh, you know,
workers.
whipping when he's whipping the Africans? Yeah, that's been up for a minute. Yeah, whipping them because the African man is weak and worship everybody. But see, sad enough, you never, ever see a Chinese man whip an African American. Ever. You'll never see that. Ever. Ever. But sad enough that I see it in Africa, where you'll get grown ass men letting a little Chinese man whip you like a child. That means your mind, Seto, you're fucked. It means your mind is fucked up. You're fucked up in the head. Something wrong with you. And they sit back, they sit on the ground, let the man beat them. Did you guys share the video? You guys showed it? You guys show it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We couldn't share the video, but we showed them
Uh,
through the film.
oh, you should be able to share. Is it? If you go to TikTok on your computer, TikTok videos, TikTok videos let you share 'em. You can find it on TikTok. Go to your TikTok page on the computer. You can share those all day long. Those don't have any.
Yeah.
Tosafuna TikTok sikugundio.
Nsobola nnyo ne app nega videos.
No, it's absolutely disgusting.
Yes.
Yeah, if you guys want to share video, if you guys make sure you got your TikTok channel on the computer, you can share what you want on TikTok, guys. Those don't have any
Mm.
copyrights. You can type in all kinds. They got good documentaries. Everything on TikTok you can share. Because those don't have any copyright things. That's what I told you guys last time. Instead of using YouTube videos, use TikTok videos. Those don't have any copyrights. But yeah, it's been. But you'll have a moron tell you. There you go. There you go. That's it. You have a moron tell you the Chinese came to help Africans. The Chinese are my friends. What you want to do? What you want to do next time? You guys instead of showing through your phone, go to your computer and go to TikTok and put your guys' TikTok account inside the computer, and then you can share videos. It'd be a lot easier for you guys.
Let's try
Yeah.
doing it.
But it's disgusting. It's sad. It's disgusting. It's disgusting.
Yes.
So
Mm.
you're a grown ass man. Let some man beat you in your own goddamn country. Tell you, Chuck. If you had any African man beating any Chinese in China, they would be killed on the spot. On the spot. As soon as that video got out of some African beating up on Chinese men, they better have their ass out of China. They better not be in no China. Yeah.
Woman, worker.
Shit. Yeah, you can just go as a guest. Yeah, just put the video in there. You ain't need your account. Just say as a guest, and then share your screen. Just type in the video and share it that way. Yeah, you can just be a guest. You ain't gotta have your
Mm.
account. Say just your guest account.
Why you say that? Say it.
What
Is that
country?
what it is?
Do we know what country that was in, guys? Did they say what country that was in?
Yeah.
Where was it at, Maria? Looked like it was.
They 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 say it was Uganda.
Whoa, no, I thought it was Kenya. Oh, well, same difference. I thought it was Kenya. Oh man, it was Uganda. Oh, wow.
Yeah,
I thought it was.
that's
I thought. I thought it was Kenya when I seen it. Go ahead.
no, that's what the information is actually saying was Uganda, and then yesterday we saw, of course, the police spokesperson talking about this. He did not deny the video being from Uganda, but of course he said the Chinese man is under investigation, which clearly shows that
An investigation. I don't
yeah.
need to investigate you whipping somebody's ass. It's right there on the tape. See this I'm talking about.
Mm.
These Mercedes and other people. This is what I'm talking about. The hold on guys. Hold on guys. Hold on guys. This is Joby call. No, give me a second. Go ahead guys. You guys give me a second.
All right.
Golina okala akavideo tebasobola kukateekayo. They delete
They deleted it,
that stuff.
but on maybe because we don't, it's not you're using an account.
Hmm? Yokuba ndi munga guest.
Mm.
I don't think so. Chinese. Eating black.
There is also that one. They did that dude doing. That was very funny. Kudosora kufuna eri cheap.
This is not very bad. This one is so crazy.
Now this video is very stupid.
Oh, these people, and it was Kenya.
Mm.
This okay, that bad. I never said it.
The way the Kenyans were pushing this Chinese man to win the race was very. See the way they are pushing him. You run, run. Man, you're right here. They are right behind him. They don't tell him run, run, run. Show much with them. You had the job.
我说积极的一种促进哇，越跑越快啊！何洁在最后是完全冲刺了起来。我们来看看最后的何洁啊，恭喜何洁获得了我们冠军啊！
Agambye embuno nnyingi mbu tukendeese tunoonye eriko ki
Eki.
mikisa.
Nanye yakamu abiri. Kamera yazisindika.
Alina okusindika n'amafa.
Ddi.
Simubuuziza. Sisaala mubuuza naawe. Kuba nze nkimanyi wagenda obisindikira. Ajja kumpa ssente ngulewo post office. So kati awo kyobola sijja mubuuza. That was hilarious.
But I'm not seeing that.
I'm not seeing the video because that it's you're not using any account.
I'm into this as a guest.
Maybe because all those 12 hours ago. We keep scrolling. I'm seeing
Eh?
keep
Once,
yeah more results.
no more.
No more.
For you, profile, and for you. I don't know, in a good to our bond. Hey, hey. Nze nakuba tewafiddeko dda. Twakoze kontenti naye naffe ne tufuna kamera tugenda kukola journalism aliyo tenisma
Ng'onoonyeza ono gundi endala ogambe kamu.
musindikire gye wasoose tukebere. Eyo gye wasoose okakase gigire
eno gye nasoose neddako ntendekeni
eyo gye wasoose naye sooka ogigire bulungi sooka ogikaatinge bulungi ojja kulekamu bino bye African man. I'm not seeing that. I don't know why I'm not seeing that video. I don't know why. Black showed up with a video Chinese man. This is what happened. I'm not seeing stuff. I'm not seeing stuff. I'm not seeing stuff.
kabina kano
I'm not seeing stuff.
because you're not using an account you need to be careful custodians. And we are not able to share because we had not downloaded that on our phone. Sorry, on our laptop. I guess because we need to have opened an account on a laptop to be able to access that and share, but we can't. So there you write them. So I do some so. Kabina kanuma. Hold on. Let's. Chisula. I just a laptop. So like with so INNOSSETU stuff. So so like INNOSSETU was telling you guys the issue of course brutality of course certain Africans have not begun with the Chinese, and this issue has been going on for a very, very long time. All right, and right. What? Simanyi webiri. I'm really sorry. Innocent is doing crazy shit. Yeah, that's. Oh god. So okay. So sorry about that. Uh, what did this for? So, so ngaduka mbio ayatola byekimutindo. So like we're saying, we also saw the Congo massacre during the King Leopold's rule. That was around 1985 to 1908. Now, we know that atrocities in the Congo Free State are referred to as series of documented atrocities prepared, preparated, or perpetrated in the period, of course, of 1985 to 1908 in the Congo Free State, now which is of course known as the Democratic Republic of Congo, which was a colony under the personal rule of King Leopold II of Belgium. Now, these atrocities were mainly associated with the labor policies used to collect natural rubber for export. And now, together with the epidemic diseases, famine, and the drop in birth rate caused by these interruptions, such atrocities contributed to a sharp decline in the Congolese population at that time. Now, we know that the magnitude of the population declined over the period, uh, of course, was disputed, but it is believed to be between 1 and 15 million people at that time who lost their lives during this era of King Leopold II of Belgium. And we know that. I'm trying to show you guys how.
Yeah, you stop playing around in the dark. Oh, that is like making.
It was innocent.
That was a play. That was
No, we weren't. I'll not tell you what happened, but it's funny, so don't worry. I'm sorry. No, the lights is my extension. I guess I need to buy an extension which is fused. That will help with the regulation of the electricity. So at times it flicks and the lights are. So I'm trying to show you guys. Though today's topic is about Chinese brutality, I'm trying to show you guys that, of course, these people usually have that kind of measure that they use on Africans to impact fear in the African minds. And like I said, this time round, the Chinese are getting it wrong. This is not those days, all right, where this was possible. Nowadays, we have people are consciously waking up. We have people who are, of course, who are still going to fight about this. And like right now, we are talking about this very scenario. I also gave you the same situation when the current president of Uganda allowed the Indians to come back. You know, we saw the Indians also trying to be barbaric. There was brutality between the Indians and the Ugandans at that time. I remember a scenario where Indians threw a Ugandan worker from a story building, and he died. He was a young youth. He was a boy between 17, 19. So this young guy died. All right. So we saw Ugandans retaliating with the same, and actually, like 4 to 5 Indians died in that chaotic situations of Ugandans trying to retaliate back to, of course, give the Indians the test of their own making. And so a lot of Indians actually even ran back to India, others stayed back, and then the police, of course, had to handle the matter. And we have never seen such kind of behavior again here with the Indians. Now, I also reminded you there is a scenario where a police officer went and shot dead an Indian money lender. All right. For him, he claimed each time he would go, the money will have increased. And even when he paid, he knew that he was done with paying the loan, but he again realized the loan was like twice. All right. So and usually money lenders play along with that game. Always. So this guy got furious. He came and shot this guy did, and he was arrested. And if at all we had not seen that scenario where Ugandans had retaliated, we would see Indians, I'm telling you, trying to kill Ugandans because of that Manelenda who was shot. But of course, there is a way Indians try to handle that issue, and they say we are related. We live in the same country. It has happened. We even see at times police officers killing Ugandans as well. So we cannot say this is a. And people were waiting to hear what is going to happen to the Ugandans in India, and nothing really happened. You understand? So because of the incident where we had Ugandans stand on their feet and fight for that scenario where Indians killed that young boy, and a lot, some 5 to 7 Indians lost their lives along the chaotic time, and that put discipline in the minds of the Indians. Now, Chinese need discipline. And we've seen this. We've seen this where Ugandans have been fighting back. We've seen these scenarios where Ugandans have been fighting back. We've seen these issues where, of course, Ugandans have been rejecting the Chinese rule, more especially in the factories and other places. So we hope to see, since this circulating image is claimed to have come from Uganda, I'm hoping to see something that is going to be acted on, and if it does not happen, then I'll be very extremely disappointed. So we have had these people, everyone who wants to come down to Africa thinks they have to use that brutality to impose or to impart fear so that people shouldn't rebel. All right. And of course, that's why we are taking you through some other atrocities that were, of course, committed throughout time. All right. So remember that King Leopold II of Belgium promised humanitarian and of course, philanthropic mission that would improve the lives of Africans. In return, European leaders, of course, a meeting at the Berlin conference granted him two, what was this? 700, 2 meters square. What is this? 2 meters squared of what? Miles. 2 meters to 2 meters.
It is estimated to 770,000 of course square miles.
So they gave him this. You just issue someone land like that in a country that's not yours. So they gave him. Name it, Antonio. Name miles, square miles. There are 2 million square miles.
2 meters square.
nawe mwita square dit.
Nti nti. Square kitegeeza.
Emirundi ebiri.
Eh?
Emirundi ebiri.
Mita emu manyi eri mu square miles.
Mita.
It is
Mita eno gye bapima ne ku lugoye.
a meter and eno eri squared.
Anti zirimu bbiri.
Anti eri estimated yenkanankana na zino.
Anti eno erabika.
Eno yenkana na kino.
So anyway, they gave him land to forge an individual colony where he could do as he pleased. All right. He called it the Congo Free State. Now, it quickly became a brutal and exploitative regime that relied on forced labor to grow and trade rubber, ivory, and minerals. Now, in addition, colonial administrators also abducted orphaned children from communities and transported them to children's colonies to work or train as soldiers. Now, of course, it is estimated that over 50% of these children died there. Now we know that we have seen the Chinese using the same tactic, of course, employing young children to work in mines because they believe when you use young children, there is a probability of not paying these children, and children will not have the sense to fight back. Of you, of course, using these children as a means of cheap labor, of you enforcing fear and doing whatever you want on these children, abducting orphans, because the same instance is happening with the orphan or with the Chinese down here. So we are seeing history trying to repeat itself. And I know, and we can still remember the scenarios where Chinese have been abducting, all right, workers and workers, and we see still the same thing was, of course, done by King Leopold, and this is all done just to secure cheap labor or to not pay. All right, because like I said, Chinese came here to, of course, they do not come here to inject any money in Africa. All right, so and you try, and you see that they try so very much to make sure that they don't even buy anything that is African. They don't want to buy the African food. At least they rather plant for their oil. They rather have their oil. But of course, these scenarios have been, of course, happening throughout time. So I feel like it is high time that Africans woke up to realize that if at all we don't stand to defend and fight for ourselves, we may end up, of course, being slaves again to this very so-called Chinese, because actually with all the possibilities, guys have been trying to compare what was happening during the colonial times and what is happening now in Africa with those who claim that they're African friends. When the British, when the Bazungos were coming to Africa, they claimed that they were friends. We are friends, we love you, we've come to do business. And when that zone ended, they showed their true colors by being barbaric, by trying to impose their own rule, their own leadership system, their own kind of governance, and the kind of education system. They actually tried so very much to wipe away what is African. And it is just a reason that people are really trying to wake up and try to do something better. And of course, try to paint the real picture of Africa for the young generation. But it was prohibited, actually, not only with the slaves who were taken outside Africa, but also with the Africans who remained back here. It was prohibited for you to use your name, your traditional name, on a regular basis. And that's why when we look at most of the prominent Africans in history, they don't have local names. Forget about the president we hear, but you will find that most of them at least have two Bazungu names. And at times you'll listen and you'll hear the names being called and you'll be like, was this a white man or an African? And somebody will tell you that was an African man because it was prohibited for you to call yourself Setu and not Innocent, or for you to call yourself Maria, and not call yourself a Christian name, so, or whatever the white name. So when people are talking about the identity, usually we look at the stories of the slaves, more especially the people who were taken as slaves outside of Africa, and but this was also used here. So if you wanted to go to school, it was your name, and that's why when we are writing our names come last. Yeah, you first have tried the other name. So as people keep on calling you that name, your identity slowly by slowly.
Called Mary
Mm.
Mount, like over it is the British kind of setting.
Yeah, theirs comes first. So that was a way of that the superiority. All right, so that people can always forget that other. Yet this is the real you, because the moment I mention my name, somebody's gonna say, "Oh, she's this." You understand? How come you have that name, Maria? Oh, you come from, because this is what defines me. I may talk a lot. I may speak a lot of languages. I may speak a lot. Someone will say, "Oh, she's speaking this. She belongs there. She's speaking this." But the moment I mention my name, somebody's definitely gonna know where I come from. And these people tried so very much to make sure that we neglect that. And until now, and it's so very unfortunate with the Chinese brutality in Africa. China is also trying to impart its language by giving out offers, of course, to students or people who know Chinese are given.
Even that Menges is contested in Chinese kind of.
They are giving scholarship of students who can speak or who have learned Chinese to go and study in China. Check it out. And of course, you know how much all Africans want to leave Africa. So now you can understand how many people are going to adapt to Chinese because they just want to leave Africa. All right. So this is all I will say. They are trying to advertise or promote the Chinese language in Africa. And it's like a lot of people are really going to, more especially the young people in school. That was first began in the government. Like we usually used to have the military people and speaking Swahili. And now they're trying to teach them Chinese as well, which is a little bit weird. Like, why should our military forces speak Chinese? It doesn't really make sense, but they're trying to teach that. We had Swahili running through the entire East Africa. First of all, it was made available within all the forces, military, police, and all the forces, the private forces, and all that. It was made, it was something that was compulsory for you to learn Swahili. And now, before even Swahili has spread to that depth, and now China is bringing Chinese in that picture. But I still, I still see Swahili is still going to take lead because it is more of a mother tongue than those other stuff. And anyway, but that is it. So, what the word of together? So that is it. In we have some against. Oh.
Uziera musanvu okutandika okugala.
So, with the brutality and trying to impart fear in the people, I know Chinese are doing this. And the funniest thing, whenever this is taking place, the Chinese know they are being recorded, but they still keep on doing it.
They were recording.
Mm.
The Africans that record these people, and the blacks that are there. If at all you're there to attack these Chinese, they'll hit you by the head. They are the same people that are guarding these people.
Bodyguards.
Yeah, they are guarding these people. But now they have those people they trust most that, of course, provide with them with information that guard whatever atrocities they are doing on their fellow Africans, and they don't care. They don't care. A lot of people. A lot of people. So there are a lot of people that have been killed in the hands of blacks at the expense of those Chinese, and they don't care just because they think that the Chinese, they are of course they are guided by the government. Whatever they are doing is under the government's control, and of course because you toyinza kumala gayingira within Africa and any other African country.
Anyway, guys, thank you so much for loving and supporting Black Hot Fire Network and our show. Of course, thank you, General Mosquito, Michelle Jib Jabba, Kerr Williams, Lando.
There is this guy. This guy. There is this guy here.
Didas from Greece. Thank you so much for joining our show today, and of course, you're welcome on Black with Fire Network because I hardly see you here. I guess maybe you're new something, but yeah, thank you so much, guys, for loving and supporting. We hope to see you tomorrow sometime. It has been me, Africa Maria, with my colleague INNOSSETU. So we are saying have a blessed day. It is a good night here in Uganda. Stay safe and take care of yourselves. Bye bye.